Ali, I am so excited to catch up with you, talk shop. I know, I do these things to, generate content, of course, that'll educate and inspire the audiences out there. However, I also just love opportunities to catch up with old friends, and this is certainly one. We're so busy in our lives between our families, our personal life, and meetings all day, especially this world on Zoom. So I always find these as really awesome opportunities to catch up. So happy holidays. How are you?
Good. And no, I was so excited when I saw this on my calendar for today. And we're getting so close to the holidays where sometimes every single meeting feels like an insult because I see the tree out there, I see the presents. But no, I was so excited to have this conversation with you. One, just it's been such a long time and we've known each other for so long, but also because this is kind of my favorite stuff to talk about.
Certainly. Well, for the folks out there, Ali and I have known each other for, it's going to be 13 years, I think.
I know that's
Give,
wild.
yeah, right. Because you were at Yesware,
Yeah.
which, in my opinion, was a very interesting time in this whole movement. And Yesware was like I don't know, like I don't know any other system that was building what Yesware was building on Gmail at that time. Really, the beginning of sales engagement. That the category didn't even exist. I remember there was InsideSales.com, Ken Krogh, and those folks who were building like a dialer on Salesforce and all that. But you were really the OG, as they say,
It
in
was,
that space.
it's so strange to think of it now, but back then the idea of giving salespeople tech, it's like you didn't do it, or you're going to give them automations and workflows. You would think about tech at that time, just entering things into CRM, and well, we all know people hate that, so it spurred a whole industry. But that, yeah, we now almost take it for granted that salespeople will be technical and know how to do these things. But yeah, it was really, yes, where back then it was the first ones who were even saying, give your reps this technology, they can do more.
Yeah. One thing as you sort of articulate all that comes up for me is just like the profile and tech savviness, let's say, of salespeople has really changed, right? Like they are so much more. I mean, I remember back then, when I started my career and particularly in SaaS, and that was, '08 or so, was my first gig in SaaS. I remember like you'd be getting these sales bros and sales folks who would just they had no idea about technology and it was very difficult. So they had to bring in sales engineers, basically all the time. And if you were someone who could speak any sort of tech savvy sort of knowledge or have had any sort of vision or experience with that whole world, it really gave you a plus. And so, it's just really awesome to see how in many ways the playing field has leveled out and now it's about getting to that next level.
Yeah. Well, I'd say, it's leveled out if you're willing to take advantage of it because, all of this new technology, it's not, I'm not going to say it's hard, much like technology is built for marketers when it's built for salespeople, it's meant to be used by non-engineers, which thank you everyone out there for that. I greatly appreciate that. But it is a new way of working. It is a new way to think. And I remember at a previous company where we were building out an enterprise team and hiring more experienced sellers who had more traditional systems. I think, they called it Salesforce.com. And I remember a VP of sales coming to me when we were running enablement saying, listen, I appreciate you and your team putting in the effort and the, incredible tech stack you've put together, but you don't understand. You've basically, put them in a rocket ship and asked them to go into space. And this is terrifying for them. How do we ease them into it more? And it was an excellent point and one that I hadn't considered because working, predominantly in tech startups were like the newest, shiniest thing. Let's go for it, speed or automation. But, didn't really realize that that's actually a separate skill set that, hadn't been a big part of sales. Whereas
Mm.
now you almost can't be successful unless you're comfortable with that type of tech.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, speaking of growth and changes, it's been a really interesting year for all of us in SaaS, year and a half, some would even argue longer. Uh, if you're a VP of marketing out there and you're thinking about how to start to approach 2024, and you have to really navigate a lot of this uncertainty. What's sort of top of mind for you right now?
Yeah. No, it's such an interesting question. And I think, uncertainty is unfortunately not going away. I wish it would, but for me, one of the biggest things is the ability to stay nimble. We don't know how this year is going to play out. We don't know if it's going to be more of the same. We don't know if things are going to get better. Hopefully they do. We don't know if they're going to get worse. Really hope they don't. I think we've been through enough already. But without knowing what's going to happen, I feel very strongly that we shouldn't commit too much spend to things we can't get out of. And that's hard because there are a lot of great things I would absolutely love to do. And in different years, I'm like, yes, let's sign up for that very expensive trade show. Let's have that very expensive partnership. And that makes all the sense of the world. Whereas now I'm very hesitant to do so because I don't know what we're going to need our budget for. So it means being incredibly thoughtful about where are you going to put your long-term bets, because you have to. You absolutely can't not make any long-term bets. But whereas in previous years, I would have been like, okay, nearly every dollar accounted for. Or maybe I'd say I'd plan 80% out and
Mm,
leave 20% for, let's see what happens. Now it's much more opposite. Like I'll put things in buckets, but I am very hesitant
mm,
to really commit to things with just not knowing how they're going to shape out. And then the other one, which I'm actually very grateful that I had about 4 years in PE because it really made me think about it differently. I think that marketers almost need to act like CFOs or, think about themselves in the way of an MBA. Full disclosure, I did in fact read Corporate Finance for Dummies. That was very helpful. But more and more marketers are being asked to justify the spend of every single dollar. We're being asked not just for budget, but you have to own a P&L. And I think, even more now than ever, if you are going to get budget from finance, you have to show how you're going to tie that. So it's a lot less of the brand conversations, which again, those are incredibly important. But for this year in particular, or at least if for however long 2024 feels like 2023, we have to act a lot more like finance people. And again, I
mm.
think just keep that flexibility, because if anything, if we've learned anything over the past few years, the unexpected does happen.
Yeah. The interesting thing about that is, how do you balance these very practical sort of decisions? You know, the finance mindset is very different than the creative marketer, right? Um, so yeah, that's one thing that really kind of comes to mind is, how do we actually balance that in a way that's not overcorrecting too much, because then you can really like destroy a brand or
Yeah.
become stale. And then, you saw like my buddy Joe Caprio, who was at Joe,
Yeah.
was in Boston for a while. And he actually brought me to a startup a couple years ago. Shout out to Joe. I love Joe. But I remember, us talking a lot about like, that experience he had when he was at another startup. He was at Chorus. You
Yeah.
remember
Oh, yeah.
Chorus.ai, and Chorus had great technology. They were really an innovator in that call recording space. However, Gong was just doing so many bold, creative things, out of the box things consistently, that the perception was that Gong was just on a different level. And so I think it could be argued that like if they were both competing in the market right now in the same way, of course, Chorus is now part of Zoom, and Gong's still out there doing its deal. But if that was right now, perhaps some of these decisions that Gong may was making back then from a branding perspective, because I knew Udi and those guys really early on when they were just like starting off. And again, to their credit, they were doing all these really innovative things, sponsoring sales hacker meetups, all this kind of stuff, which Manny was doing too, right? Which is interesting. But like, again, back to kind of circle back to my question is like, how do you balance that?
Yeah.
Again, good sound financial decisions, putting on the CFO hat, but keeping the creative mindset.
It's such a good question. And so I'd say I'll answer it in two parts. The first one is it's kind of like exercise, where just like, brand and exercise, it's good. You should do it every day. It should always be a priority. That being said, if there's, maybe a year where you have a job that you have to wake up super early, or you're new parents or whatnot, if you don't exercise for a year, it's not great, but it's not the end of the world as long as you start up soon again. And I feel like that's the case with brand, that as long as you've been exercising or investing in brand consistently, to take, I'd say, a year max off the pedal probably won't be the end of the world. But I want to clarify that, because for me, there are two types. When we talk about brand, we're almost talking about two things. There is a brand that costs money. That's the sponsorships, the communities, the podcasts. But then there's also what you're doing yourself. And the way I'm sort of approaching it this year is I have a phenomenal creative team. They are so talented. They are so much fun. And I have essentially separated them out from the growth team, from the product marketers, and just essentially said, everyone trust, like, you got to trust me, this one little group. They're doing good work. And I have been able to justify it in terms of, here's a boarding landing page versus here's a really fun creative landing page. Look how much better it converts. So it's not to say that I can't quantify it, but I do keep them separate so that they don't have the same burden of revenue as the rest of the team does. And again, this is small. We're talking 3 or 4 people out of a team of 40. So, but their remit is to make every single thing we do stand out. So that, for every piece of content, for everything on our website, for our social media, all the things that we can control, all of that has to be incredible. It has to be bright. It has to be fun. We've actually brought in an in-house videographer so we can keep on doing lots of really fun videos. So I'd say, while we're not investing in brand in the big sponsorships, for the immediate future, things will change, who knows, but that I'm doubling down on, I would say, our internal brand, because that, you're already paying for it in terms of salaries. And if you're really smart about how you use it, about how you use LinkedIn, display, or retargeting, I feel like almost it's an in-house creative's time to shine. That when there isn't the dollars to rely on it, that, for for graphic designers, this is your time to really show what you can do.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, speaking of LinkedIn, I mean, I see all the sort of employee social selling, advocacy stuff y'all are doing there. And sure that, does take time to to write and those sort of things, but we all know you can't promote personal profiles, right? Posts
Yeah.
on LinkedIn. So, in that way, it seems pretty cost effective and build thought leadership and these sort of things. Speaking of thought leadership, you as outreach as an organization, I've been observing and collaborating with Manny since the early days, since day one. And one thing that I've observed is that he's always, and just the organization overall, is really stayed up and not only helped create categories and create all these trends, but has stayed on top of it as it was happening in the macro environment. And of course, AI being one of those. And you were really leaning into the AI even before it sort of exploded this last let's say 12 months or so. Why is it that AI powered sales tools are so important? And from your perspective, and maybe we can dig into
Yeah.
outreach here a bit, what ways should go to market organizations really kind of leverage it?
Yeah. So I'm sorry to have another 2-part answer. I'm really on a roll with these today. But I'd say, one, I was so impressed that when I joined Outreach, to realize that they had been working with AI since 2016, before anyone was talking about it. So they were so, we were so well poised when, ChatGPT sprang to life. But I'd say, at a more general level and not Outreach specific, the value that AI has for a salesperson is saving time. That a salesperson's most precious resource is time. We can get you more budget, we can get you more resources, but we just can't get you more time. And that's where AI can be so, so helpful. Writing up a recap email, that just takes energy. Writing is hard. Writing something persuasive, responding to emails, and just one use case that I use, that I'm sure a salesperson can use. Sometimes I get an email, I'm annoyed. I don't want to respond back. I know I need to. And just, the act of crafting that email, between the time and brain effort I have to put into that email and then the emotional annoyance that I have to write it, now I just go into ChatGPT, say like, respond to this email, say no for these 3 reasons, tone is polite and friendly, done. That has my psyche is so much better for that. But for salespeople, account research and prospect research, this saves so much time for them. So that's just, what any person can do, with their own personal credit card. But what outreach can do is take it to a whole new level. Because again, outreach was doing AI way before ChatGPT got
Yeah.
into it. So yes, it's there, but because it's an end-to-end system, we have our AI listening all the way from when you very begin prospecting, all the way to renewal, and, all the way, through become a customer and afterwards into the whole customer life cycle. And so one, it can really give you the insights that a normal human you can't see. You can't listen to all of the details. You can't see everything. The AI can do that for you. And then I think it's also just on the coaching opportunities. So for example, with Kaya, our conversational
Yeah.
intelligence, one of the best things right now for us is that if I want to listen to a sales call or if I want to hear about a conversation, I don't have to listen to the entire call. I can go into outreach, see the 3 minutes that it was discussed, and go right there. And for coaching opportunities, same thing. If you want to have a negotiation, you don't need to listen to the whole entire call. You can listen right there. So really, AI has this ability to be. It's funny, we've been using the term like AI assistant or assist, and we obviously can't do this because Disney or Marvel would sue us. But I'm like, it's actually so much more than this. It's really like Jarvis and Iron Man. That Tony Stark, super smart. It's not like, and he had Pepper Potts in the first movie, so he had an assistant. But Jarvis was so much more than that. Jarvis
Mm.
could see things that Tony Stark couldn't see and give him that advice. And
Mm.
that's what outreach is able to do. But again, can't call it Jarvis, so we got to work on that.
Awesome. Well, speaking of just enablement and these sort of things, for the folks out there, we think a lot about sales enablement on a consistent basis. What are some of the best ways that you've seen outreach really support sales enablement efforts?
Yeah. I think it's understanding that, well, I'd say it's twofold. One is that, wow, I'm on this two track today.
I love it. It makes it easier to understand, especially for me that has ADD. Structured things really help.
I would say that it's not one and done. And I certainly made that mistake earlier in my career, that you show the sales team something once and great, they're enabled, go, run, be free. That never happens. It goes in one ear, out the other. That enablement is it's like brushing your teeth. You have to do it every single day. And so I think what outreach does so well is that we just take it incredibly seriously. So every week there's a governance committee of leaders from, the highest parts of the go-to-market team, VPs from product marketing, growth marketing, from the sales team, determining what is the biggest priority for the sales team for the next couple of weeks. And we have an mandatory enablement power hour every single Friday. So so every single week we are making sure, and also that it's not just done in a silo. I've worked at certain companies where it was only the sales team involved, but
Yep.
the fact that everybody is involved here makes sure that we don't have blind spots. And I think, also we just, we lead by example. I think Manny in particular, Manny is always reading. Manny is always learning. He is always upping his craft. He is always on LinkedIn sharing new insights. So I think that that's really pervasive in the outreach culture, that we all know that we're expected to learn and continue growing. So I think when you have that mindset, plus that we're willing to invest time into it. Again, time is the most precious resource, and there's no way to do enablement well without committing time to it. And again, it can't just be, the one sales enablement manager on their own trying to make it happen. It has to be at the highest levels. Otherwise, they're just not going to take it seriously.
Yeah. Amen. Well, there's been obviously a lot of different trends the last couple of years. It seems to be the trend to do the product led this, or sales led this, or whatever led, right? Sort of trend. But product led growth and the consumerization of B2B has it's really made its impact. We see it in various different ways. I was at a demo creation tool startup for a bit, and we talked a lot about that. We thought a lot about that. There's this whole buyer enablement movement, really sort of, I think, catching steam here right now. So I think a lot about what that looks like. But if we were to think about what this consumerization, which I think really means the way that buyers have have bought historically, is changing, and it's becoming more of a B2C sort of motion, is what a lot of folks talk about, and I think there's different pieces and to that, right? Like there is like video, for example, and social and stuff. That was historically how B2C sort of, operated heavily, or they were certainly the first ones to adopt it. And now, boy, we get on LinkedIn and it looks like the old Facebook or, or Twitter, right? And it's, basically B2B. So from your perspective, how do you think that this consumerization of B2B is impacting, sales tools like outreach?
Yeah. So it's funny you mentioned LinkedIn, because the way I think of LinkedIn is that it's your work version of Instagram. That, you're at work, you need a break, you can't go on Instagram. Either you're in the office and your manager's there, or if you're at home, it just doesn't feel right. But you can go to LinkedIn because that's work. So it's, I think that's why people go to LinkedIn. But what catches their eye is what you've been saying. It's bright, it's fun. So, one, I think we've all sort of caught on. But I think the consumerization and becoming more B2C is a good thing, but it's hard. It's so much harder because people have come to expect such an easy experience from B2C. I should have 3 clicks. You should already know everything about me. This should be tailored. I should have the right pricing right away. And this should be done in 5 minutes or less. I got insurance for my apartment in maybe 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Why can't you do, and again, if you're going to be, it's going to be different in B2B. You have a buying committee. It's not your money. You're talking, 6-figure deals, larger at times. So it will never be entirely the same. And yet the expectation from prospects and customers is that you are going to make this easy for me. You are going to entertain me. And this is going to be a pleasant experience. And so for salespeople, you have to be so on your game. You need to make sure that you are reaching out to the right people at the right time with a relevant message. You also need to make sure that then when you're on the call, you're showing up prepared, that you know who's going to be there, that you have the relevant talking points. You have to send follow-ups that are well written and clear, and that every single thing has to be so smooth. And I think that's where people who use outreach really do have the advantage. Because one, through the product itself and integration with our partners, we can tell you, here are the people who are in market, here's what they're searching for, here's the message to send to them. So one, you're already making that a better experience. Then when you're on the phone, or when you're in a call with them, they bring up a certain topic you might not have at the top of your head. You'll have content cards built in that are triggered, so you don't have to go and search for that information. You have it right on top of your head. And then at the end of the call, our AI will have write up a follow-up email that documents every single thing that happened and next steps right away. So that sort of ease is what people are looking for, and it just removes so much friction. So again, I think that's, I guess, when you boil down to it, what B2C is so easy, it's frictionless. You're, done. And not that B2B will ever be that way unless, you're the budget holder yourself. And even then you've got legal and procurement.
Yeah.
But I think that experience that you're going to show up and make this easy and be so on top and be relevant, sellers really need to bring up their game, and it's already a hard job. So that's where tech like outreach makes all the difference.
Awesome. Ali, thank you so much for being on this show and just catching up. I know last time we just literally caught up about life and these sort of things. So again, congratulations on
Thank you.
joining this uh, massive rocket ship that has been flying high for a long time. So again, shout out to our friends Manny Medina and really the entire team. If folks wanted to follow you on social, and I think I know what you're going to say here, or learn more about outreach, what are the best URLs or channels to reach you?
Definitely on LinkedIn. I tried the other ones, but I spend a shockingly way too much time on LinkedIn as it is. So yeah, LinkedIn, I'm probably the only one of the only Jowins on there, so I'm easy to find. And also the Outreach website. We have so many cool videos that are going to be coming out in January, a lot of great data and stuff. So yeah, we're really just getting started.
Awesome. Well, have a wonderful, wonderful holiday season and happy new year. And for everyone out there, the same. And to an awesome 2024.